evening and welcome to the New Mexico Philharmonic's Wednesday Night Live. Tonight, for the first time, my guest is a French horn player, and not just any French horn player, one of the best in the world, Luiz Garcia. He was born in Sao Paulo, but he studied both at Juilliard and at the New England Conservatory in Boston. After that, he became a member of the famous Empire Brass Quintet. And then he came to Brazil, playing principal horn with major orchestras here. Then after that, he goes to Europe and starts performing with several orchestras, including the Berlin Philharmonic, the Munich Philharmonic, the Bavarian Radio Orchestra, the Cologne Radio Orchestra. In the United States, he has played with the Boston Symphony and the Boston Pops. And more recently, he has also performed as a principal horn of the Chicago Symphony. So we will start our show by watching Luiz Garcia perform Haydn's Horn Concerto No. 1, the first movement. Let's watch that. The pleasure to introduce our guest for tonight's show, Luiz Garcia. Good evening, Luiz.
Good evening.
How are you?
I'm great, fine. How are you?
Fantastic. And I'm thrilled that you're participating with us tonight. That was a beautiful Haydn concerto for horn and orchestra. How long have you been playing the French horn? You must have started when you were really a young kid.
Man, I've been playing the French horn for about 40 years, believe it or not.
Oh, come on.
I started when I was 9. So yeah, 40 years.
Fantastic. Well, the same age I started playing the French horn. So it's a good age, I have to say.
Yeah, I guess so. I could barely hold it though, but you know, I guess it paid off.
Well, it's been a pleasure to have the chance to work with you over so many years. And you're now principal horn of the São Paulo State Symphony Orchestra in your home state of São Paulo, Brazil. But you've been all over the world. I mean, you spent a lot of time in the United States. You went to school in New York and in Boston, and then you had a lot of time in Europe. Do you have a favorite place to work and to make music?
Well, it's hard to say, Roberto. I have so many great places that are ingrained in my memory, so to speak. I mean, New York City is fantastic. I had a great time when I lived there. Boston is in my heart. I lived in Boston for 7 years. Went to school and worked there when I joined Empire Brass. Berlin and Munich are also in my heart, 2 cities in Germany where I lived. It's hard to pick one, really hard.
You know, the French horn, I have to say, and of course I'm biased because I was a French horn player myself, but according to the Guinness Book of Records, it's one of the 2 most difficult instruments, together with the oboe. But it's such a wonderful instrument. You know, people don't know, but out of all the wind instruments, the French horn has the greatest repertoire, you know, for solo concertos, sonatas, and, you know, not to mention all the great symphonic literature and all the opera repertoire and the chamber music. And you do it all. Is there something that you like to play the most, you know, between chamber music, being principal horn in an orchestra, or being a soloist in front of an orchestra? What's the best?
Well, again, I'm going to have to disappoint you and not give you like a precise answer to that. I love it all. I enjoy a lot sitting and playing in the orchestra, especially when the repertoire is suitable to the horn and we're having fun. And then it becomes something that's really thrilling. Standing in front of the orchestra is also fantastic, although I don't do it all that often. And I really also couldn't imagine doing it all the time. I think that would be too stressful and I don't know, just stressful is the word. Huh? And playing chamber music is very, very much a blast. I mean, it's so gratifying when you share the stage and share good music with friends, especially. And that's what I try to do in the orchestra in a larger scale. You know, try to have the same mindset that I have when I play chamber music. Of course, it's not that easy because you have so many more people, and sometimes some people you know you don't want to be sharing anything with. But it's
Right.
fun. It's fun when the right group of people are there and things are going well. It's just some kind of energy that it's really hard to describe, but you know what it's like.
Well, one of the most famous horn solos in all symphonic literature is the slow movement, the second movement from Tchaikovsky's Fifth Symphony. And that's what we're going to watch now. Luiz Garcia performing Tchaikovsky's Fifth Symphony, the beautiful horn solo with the São Paulo Symphony Orchestra. So let's watch that. So that was really gorgeous, Luis. Tell
Thank you.
me, do you prefer the conductor gives you a tempo and conduct you in a solo like that? Or would you rather be more free and take your own tempo and sort of lead the orchestra?
Well, I guess the tempo has to come from him or her. But then once I get started within that tempo that's already pre-established, I would like to do my own thing, and he or she preferably follow me. But the tempo really, has to be like the tempo that he or she has in mind, I think.
Another solo which is at the very start of the movement is the famous solo from the first movement of Bruckner's Fourth Symphony. And I remember when we play that, you actually asked me to give you a cue, because I was actually letting you be too free, and that's also not ideal, right?
Right. Sometimes too much freedom comes with a price, Sometimes it is nice to have a little companion, so to speak, and you feel a little bit safer and more grounded. And that's why I asked you back then to give me a little cue so I could breathe with you and feel really secure to come in and then do my thing.
Let's watch that. So this is the first movement of Bruckner's famous Fourth Symphony, the Romantic Symphony. And this is with the Brazilian Symphony Orchestra under my conducting, Luiz Garcia on French horn. remember that concert so vividly. It was one of the best Bruckners that I've ever done. And of course, we never tire of these symphonies because they're so beautiful. But here's my question to you, Luis, and that's the famous classic question. What would be your desert island composer? You know, because there's Bruckner, there's Mahler, Tchaikovsky, Richard Strauss, Richard Wagner. If you only had one composer to live with for the rest of your life, which one would it be?
Well, I guess this time around, I better give you an answer, right?
Right.
I'll have to say Mahler. I'll have to say Mahler.
Fantastic.
Of course, he's right up there with Richard Strauss, Brahms, Bruckner, Wagner. But if I have to pick one, it would be Gustav Mahler. You know,
I remember
for the horn. He writes for the horn so well. I mean, everything just is right there. Some things are difficult to play, but still, it's really well written for the instrument. And this kind of music that comes from the gut, you know, it's just like it's raw, and sometimes it's savage, sometimes it's so melancholic. It has everything in it. It's complete. For me, he's the most complete composer.
Well, we'll have to tell our New Mexico audience that we'll have a Mahler excerpt from Luis to you next show, or one of these shows, because we don't have one for tonight's show. But
That's right.
I remember my first Mahler 5 was with you, and that was a phenomenal symphony. That was a phenomenal performance. I mean, this was in about 20 years ago.
Yeah,
and,
about 21 years ago in Sala São Paulo.
Exactly.
Right?
It was riveting. I think I do have an audio from that, but not the video. But it's wonderful. I mean, the French horn really is one of these heroic instruments. You know, Beethoven already in the Eroica Symphony has the French horn as you know, one of the main parts, especially in the scherzo, where he has the horn trio performing that. And after Beethoven, you know, comes Schumann, which also uses the instrument very heroically, and then Brahms, of course, and then Richard Wagner, and Mahler, and Bruckner, of course. It has this great characteristic because the French horn, it works with the strings, with the woodwinds, with the brass. It's one of the more flexible instruments in the orchestra. Would you say?
Yes, I agree with you totally. And it also makes the bridge between the large section, between the brass, woodwinds, and strings. The horn makes this connection between these sections so well and naturally because of its flexibility. You know, the horn can be very velvety and full of melancholy, but it can also be very brassy and aggressive. So it's a wonderful instrument to make these connections.
And well, Robert Schumann used to say that the French horn is the soul of the orchestra. And no wonder he wrote this beautiful concerto for 4 horns in orchestra, the Concertstück. And it really is this fascinating section of any symphony orchestra. It could be one of the most problematic also, right?
That's right. It's so difficult to play. It's so difficult technically, but musically speaking, it's such a masterpiece. I mean, I've talked to so many great musicians, non-horn players, and they say that that's probably one of the best works by Robert Schumann. And, you know, it happens to be written for 4 horns in orchestra.
I think Schumann himself considered that one of his best works. And now we're going to hear an excerpt from a very special video, because you have played often as a principal horn with many wonderful orchestras, with the Boston Symphony, with the Munich Philharmonic, with the Bavarian Radio Orchestra, with the Frankfurt, the Cologne Radio Orchestra. But there's one special orchestra in the world, which is the Berlin Philharmonic, considered the best orchestra. And recently you have performed with them as principal horn on a performance of Shostakovich Symphony number 8. So tell us about this experience of playing first horn with the Berlin Symphony, Berlin Philharmonic.
Well, it's like driving your top model of a Ferrari, maybe, you know. It's wonderful. I mean, everybody knows the orchestra is really good, and but they're really good not only because they have fantastic musicians, but also because they have fantastic musicians with a great attitude. They're all like on, you know, in the very tip of their chairs and like really engaged. And there's nobody like sitting down, you know, and taking it easy. They're all really engaged all the time. And it's the energy that
not only
creates.
at rehearsals, but at not only at the performances, but at every rehearsal, they're giving their best.
Rehearsal. Yeah, yeah. Of course, of course, in the very first rehearsal, is not as good as it's going to be in the concert, but it already is really good. And it already is really like we're making music. We're not fooling around, and it's mind-blowing experience.
So let's watch that. Luiz Garcia performing principal horn with the Berlin Philharmonic, the slow movement of Shostakovich Symphony number 8. Wow, kudos to you, Luis. That was incredible. You know, we're all
Thank
proud. Cheers.
Cheers.
Wow.
Thank you.
And you were just telling me that also more recently you have performed as principal horn with the Chicago Symphony, another one of the great orchestras in the world. What was that experience like? What did you play with them?
That was also magnificent. That was fantastic. We did a program with a overture by Weber, and then Beethoven's Fourth Symphony in the first half. And after the break, we played only works by Richard Wagner. So there was something like overture by like Wagner, for instance, Meistersinger for Nuremberg, the overture, and then bits of the opera. Tristan und Isolde overture, and then bits of the opera. And it was fantastic. You know, all I could remember was thinking to myself, just do your thing and do your thing like they do their thing. Don't try to innovate, you know, because like, you know, when the way they play like Meistersinger, for instance, pum 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 pum, the way they articulate that, just so great, you know, just so like Chicago Symphony like, and just all I had to do is just like go along, you know.
Of course.
Yes, lead the horn section, but lead the horn section within the style that was already going on in the brass section, of course. It was great. It was a long, heavy program of this Weber Overture, Beethoven's Fourth, and then all these pieces by Wagner. But it was great. It was fantastic. 4 great concerts. It was a week to remember.
Yeah, it's very challenging program because it's very delicate in the first half. And then you have all the heavy Wagner writing for French horn in the second half. So that's what a test.
I think I remember the name now of the overture by Weber. It was Erianthe. It's not very often. It's not very often played. It was my first time playing this overture, and I haven't played ever since. I mean, this was 2 years ago, but it was an interesting program. It was conducted by Marek Janowski.
Fantastic. Now, Luiz, in all your years as a French horn player, you must have some very funny stories in all your travels, and because there always something funny related to the French horn and horn players, right?
Well, there's some funny bits, some tragic bits. Today are fun. Today they're funny. I remember there's a funny story actually that doesn't speak very highly of me, but you were present. And I was a student at this festival here in Brazil when you were a teacher. This was many, many years ago. And I remember we were playing in the student orchestra, Shostakovich's Fifth Symphony. And this festival, it lasts for about 4 weeks. So it's a long festival. And I was very young. I must have been 14, 15. And I was playing principal in the orchestra. And Shostakovich Fifth is, famous for horns. It's got this very, very difficult high solo in the first movement. And the festival orchestra would rehearse back then for like at least 3 out of the 4 weeks of the festival. So it was like tiring and somewhat, after some point, boring work after so many rehearsals. And I remember in the first
Don't forget to say I was not conducting, huh?
No. You're the horn teacher. You're not conducting.
Exactly.
And I remember in the first week playing the solo, no problem, just like nothing to it. And my friend next to me would, be saying, "Oh, sounds great," but it says it's written something there in Russian. It says something there under the solo. You know what it means? I said, "I don't speak Russian, but I think I know what it means. I think it means if you're afraid, you play the solo down an octave or something like that." And then we laughed. We would giggle, blah blah blah, and it was funny. And then the time went on, and the festival got more and more socially interesting, and the musical part of it was left a curbside. And it was 14, 15, like I said, didn't take things that seriously back then. Long story short, by the 4th week of the festival, I had no chops whatsoever because I had been hardly touching the horn. And got to concert time and came to the solo. I was so out of shape that I had to play the high bit, the difficult bit, down an octave.
I had completely forgotten about that.
But you were there.
Remembered now. I remember I was at that concert watching, and I said, "Oh no." That was the one and the only time I heard that play that way. Anyway,
karma
Luis,
is something.
exactly. You know, you would wish your friend sitting next to you would have never asked that question, right? Because then you wouldn't have that option.
That's true. That's true.
But listen, it's been great talking to you, you know, and remembering some of the good old times. And, you know, you're now considered one of the top horn players in the world, playing principal as guest with so many of the great orchestras in the world. But I do wish you can come to New Mexico one of these days and play with us. We have a wonderful orchestra, the New Mexico Philharmonic. We have a great audience that really appreciates music and appreciate the musicians and the artists. So it would be a great pleasure.
Just say when. It'll be a pleasure.
Fantastic. So thank you so much. We're going to finish our show by watching another video of Luiz Garcia performing one of the great concertos for French horn and orchestra by Reinhold Glier. And this is the first movement of this beautiful concerto by Russian composer Glier. So let's enjoy that. And with that, we'll say goodbye to everyone. Thank you, Luis, for participating. It's been a great joy speaking with you.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And cheers to the French horn, one of the greatest instruments of all.
Cheers.
Thank you, everyone. Please remember, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you next week with another show. Good night.